Welcome to On Texas Football. Hope everybody's having a good weekend so far. I'm Bobby Burton, joined by Gerry Hamilton. We're going to talk a little recruiting this afternoon. The Longhorns about 30 hours away from learning the decision of Miami running back Derrek Cooper, one of the top players in the country at the position, if not the very top. A young man, 6'1", 205 pounds, state qualifier in the 100, 200 meter, as well as the long jump, big body guy that can move. We'll talk a little bit more about him later, Gerry. But we thought today you and I would kind of go over where Texas sits, kind of take a deep breath, and where Texas sits from an overall perspective in recruiting after a big week, not only with Tyler Atkinson, but also James Johnson. I'm going to put up the list of commitments that Texas has right now. Texas sitting at 20.
Yeah, look, I think where Texas is at right now is they're about the 7th, 8th ranked class in the country. So they're right there knocking on a door to be top 5 by the time the ball's kicked in Columbus. And they've look, I really like where this class is at, and I know it's a really winding road to get to this point. But you look at quarterback, you had a 5-star there. That you look at wide receiver, I think that Cohen Brown is going to end up being one of the more underrated kids in Texas if he has a really good senior year, based on just getting to know the kid and what makes him tick. Chris Stewart stayed in the class. John Turntine, I think, is as talented as any offensive lineman Texas is recruiting. Nicholas Robertson, Max Wright. The flip of James Johnson obviously was huge in the defensive front. I just think is really, really good in this class with James Johnson, Berryman, an over-the-ball player. Vodney Cleveland can play over the ball or a disruptor, and Corey Wells is a 3-tech. And you add in Richard Wesley, who I believe is a 5-star prospect at edge. And, man, what a front group Texas has committed in. Look, they're not done there either. Then at linebacker, the addition of 5-star Tyler Atkins, they go with Kosi Okpala. I mean, that's a great start at linebacker for Texas, and there's one more spot to be filled at that position. And then you look over in the secondary, and Samari Matthews with Hayward Howard. I mean, that's 2 of the 3 guys that Mark Orfe really wanted at corner. Then you have Yaheem Riley as a safety/nickel. And then obviously Jermaine Bishop, we feel like is one of the top 75 players in the country, no matter where he's ranked as an athlete. Could legitimately be a wideout, could legitimately be a corner, will factor in the return game. And then Texas crushed it at the specialists, obviously. So this is a legitimate top 7, top 8 level class right now with the ability to be right around 4 or 5 come August.
Gerry, you talk about that and that class ranking. We want to be clear about this, and I think it's important. We're not saying definitively it has to be ranked 3 or 2 or 4, or it could be 6 or 7, but you have to be in that group of schools that collects at the top each and every year if you want to be a national football power. And that's what we're talking about. So if Texas, for example, were to get a Derrek Cooper and move up to number 4 in the national rankings, that's great. Other teams may get other guys between here and the start of the season, et cetera. But it positions Texas, particularly this last end run with not only Samari Matthews that started last week or John Turntine the week before that, but you put in a 5-star in Tyler Atkinson, a 5-star in James Johnson, and potentially a 5-star in Derrek Cooper, along with Diabell and Richard Wesley, who are already ranked in that category. You start to see the bulk of the class fill in with these level of players that Texas expects. And so one thing that you and I have always talked about, and I know you and I both agree on this, is that it's not necessarily whether they finish 2nd or 1st or 3rd or 5th. They just don't want to finish 15th.
You want to be in the game. You want to be in the game.
Yeah. And I think that's what we're describing right now that I think is so important. All right, let's turn our attention a little bit now. You mentioned Texas still needs a linebacker. We've put this out on ontexasfootball.com and kind of gone through what Texas is still looking for. I'm going to go with it position by position for you. I want your comments, and then I'm going to comment as well. Quarterback, obviously, Diabell, no quarterbacks. On the offensive side of the football, Texas wants a big-time haymaker, rainmaker at running back, and all eyes right now are on Derrek Cooper, who announces tomorrow at 6 o'clock Central.
Yeah, look, I think it's Texas or Miami. I think there's been some positive signs for Texas for a week or so. It's the only visit he says he has during the season coming up. That would obviously be the guy. I saw him in the spring. I think he's tremendous. I think he's going to be a 6'1.5", 215, 220-pound back that is really good in outside zone, but can also run it up inside. Has good hands out of the backfield. Is just a football player, one of the best players in the country, and he'll prove that again as a senior. But that would be the one for Texas, and that would vault this class.
That would vault this class, I think, because you need difference makers. He's considered a difference maker, right? And that's a big piece of it. I would add this: as of this morning, I've been told there's no changes yet. But again, Jerry and I have been doing this a long time. You guys have been watching a long time. This is the new era of recruiting. Things can and do change, so we'll see what happens before he announces. But we'll be following that live, obviously, 30 hours from now when Derrek Cooper decides and makes his decision, young man from Hollywood, Florida. All right, the rest of the offense, Jerry, wide receiver, tight end, and offensive line. I've got wide receiver 0-1. I've got tight end 0-1. And I've got offensive line with kind of an asterisk on it, tackle 1.
Yeah.
Specifically, they need a tackle in this
Yeah.
class. What do you think about the rest of that offensive need list?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I mean, look, I think one more wideout. I think Texas will stay in contact with Jalen Lott. I think they will. And Jermaine Bishop could or be a wide receiver after a senior. He may decide, hey, this is what I want to do, or it may be defensive back. Tight end, I agree. I think it would be just kind of hanging around the rim on a couple of guys committed elsewhere and see what happens. I don't think it's going to be anybody that pops up as a senior necessarily, unless there's coaching change, some outside factors. Offensive line, I think it's Malachi Lee is who Texas is going to target. Now, if a Roseboro or Crimpin or somebody picked up the phone and said, hey, man, I'm having second thoughts, I don't necessarily think Texas would say no. But I think as far as the guy they're going to go all in on, it's going to be offensive tackle Malachi Lee.
And that makes sense. So you literally could see a situation or a scenario where they find another wide receiver somewhere, where they do or don't find a tight end that kind of pops loose late. Maybe it's even a reclassification guy, that sort of thing. And then offensive tackle, at least of the ones we know of right now, definitely going to stay on Malachi Lee, and then maybe a Sam Roseboro, Zayden Crimpin, they stay involved with as well to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Does that wrap up offensive recruiting for you?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I want to say thanks real quick to our sponsor of this episode. That is Advanced Pain Care. Here's their advertisement from Dr. Mark Malone, Vince Young, and Colt McCoy.
Pros know the pain stops here.
Physical therapy helps me as an athlete then and now. And do I still need therapy? Yes. Advanced Pain Care helps with that.
Injuries will stack up. They'll add up. You can't let those injuries get you down, and Advanced Pain Care has been very helpful for me.
We can help with whatever's got you down, from nerve damage to our spinal cord stimulator. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Same-day appointments available.
Advanced Pain Care. The pain stops here.
That number, 512-244-4272. Jerry, offense is pretty straightforward, we think. Get Derrek Cooper, if you can, tomorrow. And then kind of bide your time on offensive tackle, maybe look for skill position guy at wide receiver, tight end. Defense is a little bit different. Texas has one edge in this class. That's Richard Wesley. Now, he's a great player, five-star young man out of Southern California. They have 4 defensive tackles committed. They have 2 linebackers committed, and they have 4 defensive backs, if you count Jermaine Bishop as a defensive back. All right. You look at this, there's a lot of permutations they could go through, but let's start at defensive end because they absolutely want at least one more defensive end. Jake Kruel has been a guy that's been mentioned, young man out of IMG, but he's more of a prototypical pass rush guy in the mode of, say, a Trey Moore, perhaps. So are they looking for maybe a pass rush and a defensive end guy? Kind of that mix maybe, and so it could actually be 2 kind of edge guys possibly.
Yeah, I think there's an outside shot they take a designated pass rush specialist. That's what Jake Kruel is. I mean, he's not a 3-down player in the SEC, at least not for a while if he goes to an SEC school. And I think Texas will stay in on Trenton Henderson. He's too good not to. He committed to LSU out of Pensacola Catholic. I think that's what Old Texas will do. I think they'll just kind of hang around the rim on a couple of guys, and with Trenton Henderson being the main guy. Jake Cruel, when will he announce? Probably not for a while. But if Texas decides to go designated pass rush specialist, as well as another edge player who's more of a 3-down player, then Cruel could find his way into the class.
Yeah, it's very interesting because I think Trey Moore is the amalgam, kind of the comparison for him. Trey Moore was a 3-down player for Texas, and that doesn't mean Jake Cruel can't be. It's just how you move him around when you have so many chess pieces, how you might use him. And if he's a pass rusher, if Texas can really block up that middle with guys like Vodney Cleveland, as well as James Johnson, those kind of guys, Dylan Behrman, they're going to be able to look at that a little bit differently, I think, and maybe have more space for that kind of guy. Now, linebacker, Jerry, this is interesting. Texas has 2, Tyler Atkinson and Cozy Okpala. They lose at least Anthony Hill in this season. So they're looking to replenish, though, because they've had to go to the portal a little bit and even move Trey Moore to linebacker. They went to the portal for Brad Spence. They've only signed 1 and 2 linebackers in the last 2 classes. You want to try to sign 2 to 3 every year. You still think they could go after 1 more linebacker here? And if so, is that the question mark about where that even comes from potentially?
Yeah, well, look, I think Texas really likes Braden Rouse. I could see them staying in contact with Rouse and just seeing what happens throughout the season. If he's still feeling it with Tennessee, the people around him are still feeling it with Tennessee, because I think Texas really, really likes Braden Rouse. So, and then that's a position somebody could pop up that's committed elsewhere, and Isaiah Williams, right, who's an absolute stud out of the Orlando area, although his recruiting is all over the map and has been for a while, but he is a tremendous talent. I think that's a position somebody could pop up that hasn't been on the radar fully yet.
And Isaiah Williams is, was it Tavares, Florida? Is that right? And at one time he's committed to Ole Miss, or is committed to Ole Miss, but he's been visiting and says he's open. Texas has already offered him a scholarship. We'll see what comes of that, if anything. Right, Jerry? Because, I mean, Texas has done quite well at linebacker, as is with both Tyler Atkinson and Cozy Okpala. In the secondary, I mentioned they've got 4 committed if you include Jermaine Bishop. If Bishop pushes to wide receiver, they're clearly going to want at least 1 more. We've got 0 to 1 as the marker right now, but I will say we believe the Longhorns are honed in on one of those being Devon Benjamin, young man out of California. Texas brought him in for an official visit, but that's going to be a tough battle for the Longhorns because he is wanted by more than just the University of Texas.
Yeah, if Texas wasn't all in on Devon Benjamin, I'd probably be at Newhouse knocking on the door saying, hey, remember this guy now. I mean, they have been since his unofficial visit, because I'm going to go back to this story. When they put him on the board, apparently, from what we heard, he was the best they've ever had in the Sark era as a defensive back on the board. That is high praise when Jahdae Barron came through the school. I mean, that's saying something. Can Texas beat out Oregon is the question, because Oregon's been on him for years. They've been considered the favorite. Michigan's made a little noise, but I think it just comes down to Oregon and Texas, with Michigan having a hat at the table. We'll see if the Longhorns can upset here in early August.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that, Oregon's going to be tough. It's absolutely going to be a tough one for them. Jerry, overall, we like the direction. We've said that we've liked the direction of what Texas is recruiting heading into these 2 months. And then there was a little gap there of about a month where people were kind of up in arms. Now that things, and I mentioned this at the outset, now that things have settled down a little and we've seen some things play out, anything change in your mind? Or I will ask you this. Do you think that your faith, for lack of a better term, in Sark has been rewarded a little bit? Because you were always saying, hey, look, I think this is going to work itself out. I think, what was your take on that?
Yeah, look, I think Texas has a tremendous class right now. And the thing about it is their class has more runway than anybody else ranked highly. Texas is only at 20 commitments right now. USC's over 30. Georgia's about at 30. Everybody else is in the mid-20s, realistically, or most people are. Texas class has real runway. If they went out for Derrek Cooper tomorrow, They're and keep everybody they have committed, which somebody may drop off. You just never know. But Texas is still going to have 5-6 spots potentially. And if they get 5-6 high-level players, which is what they will do, if you look at last year with Zealous Hicks, the reclasses guys are always out there. Justice Terry, Grayson Littleton, Flip Cade Phillips, Flip Dalen McCutcheon. Those are the type of guys that Texas is going to be in on in senior season. Then this class has, if they get Derrek Cooper, this class has the runway to be a top 2 class again. Bottom line. So am I happy? Hell yeah.
if you're looking at from a Longhorn perspective, there's no doubt about it. The Atkinson Johnson double on Tuesday was phenomenal, and we'll see if the Longhorns are able to continue that streak tomorrow with Derrek Cooper. All right, Jared, thanks. Enjoy the British Open if you're watching that, fellas out there. I think 4 Longhorns made the cut for the golf tournament this weekend. Enjoy that. For Gerry Hamilton, I'm Bobby Burton. This has been On Texas Football. Hook 'em.